Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we're trying a bit of a spice experiment here, but I think it should be a lot of fun. So I wanted to play a deck that ran both Endurance and Force of Will, as these are like some of the best zero mana interaction that you can get in Legacy right now. I think that's a good place to be. I also wanted to have a plan that would go over the top of our opponents, as well as something we could apply pressure with. So we're kind of trying to have a lot of different gears that we can access. Now a problem with trying to do this sometimes is having enough green cards and enough blue cards for Force of Will. So the first thing I turned to was Nadu. This is a blue and a green card. It's obviously a pretty reasonable card just on its own, but then it opens up an ability to go over the top of a lot of opponents. So to get this going, I didn't want to have lots and lots of cards, so we've just ended up with the Shuko, but we have 4 tutors for it in Stoneforge Mystic, so effectively 5 Shukos to then go with the Nadu and just get us comboing off. So the Stoneforge also provides us with the front foot forward aggressive plan. We play this out, we go get Kaldra, we turn this sideways, our opponent dies. That's a tried and tested way to win games of Magic the Gathering. It can also go and fetch us a Pre-War Formalwear to get back things like the Nadu. It can get the Cryptic Coat to grind us out some value, or just have a blue card for Force of Will if we need one. And obviously the Shuko is the sort of first reason why it got included in here. Another blue-green card we have is Uro. Just a great card, we don't really need to talk about this one anymore. But then we get to the interesting card in the list, I think. Shardless Agent. Now, once upon a time, this was an absolute banger in Legacy. People were playing this all the time. It was one of the best decks, and it's not been like that for a long time. So, how do we think this is going to play out? Well, it's a blue-green card. That is some of the main statistics of this card. It is going to be pitching to our Force of Will. It's also going to be pitching to Endurance. However, it does have some synergy with what we're trying to accomplish here. This is a body, effectively a free body. And bodies plus Nadu and Shuko is a good place to be. This is also going to be cascading into stuff. What is it going to cascade into? Tamiyos, Stoneforge Mystic, Shuko, or Brainstorm, or some of our removal. Now, cascading into Prismatic Ending does suck because this can only hit 0 drops at that point. So that is the one card that we don't want to cascade into with it, which means we're going to cascade into it every single time we cast it. But I think the Prismatic Ending is just so useful to have that I wanted it in the list. And sure, maybe we cascade into it once or twice and it makes us sad. But statistically speaking, we should be alright. And we can set up our cascades using Brainstorm anyway. So the Shardless Agent should hopefully be getting us some good value whilst also just being a spare body. Now we've seen how useful the Orcish Bowmaster is in Legacy, where just having that spare body ends up being a big deal. We're trying to get a similar sort of effect from Shardless Agent whilst just having something that helps with our pitch card count, so we're not going to get bodied by a graveyard deck on turn 1 or like a combo deck where we have to have a clutch Force of Will. So this should hopefully plug the gap. How good it's going to be, I don't know, but that's why we're testing it to seeing how it fares. So that's pretty much the list. We have 1 Wasteland hidden away in our mana base and 1 Surveil land and a Karakas. The rest of it is just, fetches, jewels, and basics. For the sideboard, we get to leverage our Shardless Agent, weirdly, which is not a thing I thought I'd be saying in Legacy, but here we are. So we have some stuff that the Shardless Agent can cascade into. Serenity to blow up a whole bunch of things. We have Deafening Silence to try and shut down some of the Stormy style combo decks. We have ourselves Collector Ouphe. Now, yes, we have a few artifacts like Shuko, but in certain matchups, like the Karnforge deck, we just want to shut them down. So having 3 Collector Ouphes that we can then just go and try and cascade into, effectively giving us maybe 7-ish copies of Collector Ouphe, should hopefully be enough, and then we can just play like a fair game plan against what our opponent's doing. We've got an Assimilation Aegis as a bit of removal. We can take out like a big creature and then turn our creature into a big creature. We can also cascade our way into the Grafdigger's Cage. So we are trying to leverage this Shardless Agent a little bit as well. The other cards on the sideboard, we've got a Wasteland, we've got a Surgical Extraction, a couple of Hydroblasts, some Force of Negations, because again, we're trying to make sure we have enough cards to pitch, so having some pitch counters makes a lot of sense, and we can recoup those lost cards because we're trying to go over the top with things like Nadu and Uro anyway. So I think our deck should have pretty good game into a bunch of things. We've got the turn 0 interaction to really hate on some of the combo decks out there, and then we can board into stuff to deal with the other combo decks in the form of Collector Ouphe. We've also got a pretty solid game, I would imagine, into tempo decks, because we've got some good removal. We've got the Endurance, which is very good against those sorts of decks. The Stoneforge Mystic can do some real work there as well by giving us a threat that's bigger than theirs. And then we also have, this top-end stuff that can go over the top. So I think we're going to have some good axes to attack our opponents with. How stable it's going to be, we'll see. But it's just a bunch of good cards and also Shardless Agents. So what's not to love, right? So, like, subscribe, and let's just get stuck into this one. It could be a long, grindy one, but I think it should be interesting and enjoyable. For the best Eternal experience this summer, check out Eternal Mania in Hasselt, Belgium from August 8th to 10th. Aside from hosting the European Legacy Masters, they have a whole host of other tournaments from Team Trios to Old School and Pre-Modern. I will be there playing Legacy and hanging out as a special guest. This will also be the first event that I'll be giving out my own special Marital Age tokens, so why not come down to enjoy an awesome weekend ran by one of the best TOs in Europe. We're on the play for round 1, we only have 1 land. I don't think we want to keep 1 lander. We can just get a basic and then just do Tamiyo crimes here. But it's kind of already a mulligan with a Kaldra anyway, so we should probably just be disciplined and send it back. This is a similar but worse hand, I guess, so let's go send it back again. Okay, I don't like it, but I think we're going to have to go along with it at this point. So we've got a Tamiyo. This can recoup some lost card advantage. How many cards do we got to put back? 2. So put back the Cryptic Coat. So we can keep the Endurance plus a card that pitches to both of it. Would I rather have the Shardless Agent or the Nadu? I think in this current situation, I'm actually going to go for the Shardless Agent over the Nadu. Because this can dig our way to like cantrip in the form of Brainstorm or something. So let's try this. Alright, opponent, don't be Wastelanding me. I don't think they're going to Wasteland us if we just got a Tamiyo sat in play. But we do need to find another land here. We're actually got more lands than your generic sort of builds like this because we've got... I say like this, there's not many builds like this one, but some of the more traditional looking Nadu Stoneforge decks with Plagon and stuff, they tend to have 20 lands, and we've got 21. Do I want this to happen? Our opponent is playing Painter's Servant. I don't think we get to fight over this. We do know that we're not worried about Wastelands now. That's always nice. Okay. We're going to need to find a green source to get this Shardless Agent on the stack, but until then, we do have like some cover against something scary that our opponent does. Is this going to be a Fable? Because that's the sort of thing that we might have to interact with. A Tainted Servant with red mana up for Red Blast. I don't think we get to fight over that. We've got plows and stuff. We can jam them into this. Okay, a Flooded Strand. Let's go and fetch for Tropical Island. So there are some pros and cons to making this. Like, if we suspect our opponent already has a Red Blast, it means that they can play a Grindstone next turn and force us to force it. I think I'm just going to play this. We can hit a bunch of different things here. Let's Cascade. Okay, I'll have a Tamiyo. That's a pretty reasonable one to have. They're going to Pyroblast the Tamiyo, which means hopefully we can buy ourselves another turn and then find a blue card. Although actually no, the Endurance is already blue, isn't it? What am I talking about? Thanks to the Painted Servant, we do have a Force of Will here. So if they Pyroblast this Tamiyo, although why would they Pyroblast the Tamiyo if they're going to win next turn? So if they're playing a longer game, they Pyroblast the Tamiyo. If they're not, they just sit back. Alright, so they're probably playing a longer game here. You can take out the Tamiyo, that's fine. We need to stop them from killing us with a Grindstone. They took a while on that, so I think that was probably their last Pyroblast. But why would you do that? Unless, okay, so we got a Fable. Am I beating Fable here? That's a lot of looks. I hate this a lot. I think we're going to lose this game, but we'll use their own Painted Servant changing the colour of our Endurance to try and force this Fable. I think we're just going to be behind to our opponent's fair game plan here. And then constantly at the risk of getting bodied. Alright, this makes a big difference. Let's fire him with the Stoneforge Mystic. They can Pyroblast this because everything is blue still. And they're pausing like they have it. I think we get the Pre-War Formalwear here. Because our opponent is likely to have some sort of removal spell for this. So we just go and get Pre-War Formalwear. Then if they kill this, we get it back anyway. But bigger. And if they don't kill it, then we can put in the Pre-War Formalwear and get back a Tamiyo. They have perfect information, so if they had the combo, they would send it. But where they Pyroblast the Tamiyo made me think they didn't have the combo. An Engineer, okay. So this can go and get them the Grindstone for the kill next turn. So we're going to have to do something about this. Pre-War Formalwear, getting back Tamiyo, not going to cut it here. We need to find our Source of Plowshares or our Prismatic Ending. Okay, they're casting a Phyrexian Dragon Engine on top of that. Pretty good. So they are winning the fair and the unfair plan right now. An Endurance. Annoyingly, we don't have the mana to cast this. That is a frustration. So they should just kill us next turn. And then we're going to have to go to game number 2. Now, we've got some great tools for this. We've got Collector Ouphe, we've got Serenities. We're going to have a good time. Serenity, we have to be careful with our own artifacts, but Kaldra is indestructible. Alright, we can just take the damage here. This isn't the thing that's killing us. I wonder when they're going to try and fire this in. I don't want to play the Pre-War Formalwear. I want our opponent to think about stuff. Okay. They're just going for it now. If they go for it now, then we are just dead. Alright, we can scoop it up there. I was thinking if our opponent wanted to wait till our end of turn and then they could just have more mana when they're cracking it. Okay, so we have some good tools here. I like the Collector Ouphe to shut down a bunch of their bits and pieces. The Hydroblast are excellent. The Serenities are good. The Force of Will are not great here. Wasteland is good because they run Urza's Saga, so we'll board in our additional copy of Wasteland. The Grafdigger's Cage is fine, but not that impressive. So, if we're boarding in stuff that looks like this, do we get to keep Shuko in our list? Like, with the Collector Ouphe? Probably not. Cryptic Coat, we lose the bounce ability, so that's less good. Pre-War Formalwear kind of just does its thing already, and so does the Kaldra, so they are fine things to go with the Stoneforge. But maybe we could trim on the Stoneforge, perhaps. We've still got Endurance, which I think is going to be a good place to be here. So we're looking at something like this at the moment, which means our deck has to find one more cut. What is that going to look like here? Like, it should... I'm not even sure if it should be Shardless Agent. There's so many good things we can hit here. Like, we can hit the Ouphe, Hydroblast, and Serenity. Those are going to be really good a lot of the time. So I think maybe we trim on the Nadu, because we've gotten rid of our Shuko. Now, Nadu can still just sit there and do stuff and make horrible exchanges for our opponent. It's a pretty good body. We do need to win somehow. I think that's reasonable. I'm not going to bring in the Assimilation Aegis. So what does this do? Yeah, this shuts down some stuff. Do we want to play around a potential turn 1 Blood Moon? We can do that. It comes at the expense of us making a 2-drop though. I think I'm just going to lead off with the Hedge Maze. And if they turn 1 Blood Moon us, which isn't a thing they tend to do that often, but is the thing they have access to, then they can get us. But if we can find our island at some point, then we can still Hydroblast it later on. If we find the plains, we can Serenity it. Alright, we have an Urza's Saga. I'm just going to Wasteland this on our turn and move on with life. And now we can hold up a Hydroblast if our opponent wants to do anything with that. So they might have had a Blood Moon, they were trying to play it on turn 2, so they could lock in the construct making ability of the Saga. Alright, another Saga. A little bit rude. Do I want to Brainstorm here? I don't think so. I'm not a big lover of these Endurances just yet, but I think it's reasonable. We don't need to play out... I was going to say, we don't need to play out the Collector Ouphe this turn. Collector Ouphe and Tamiyo are also a bit of a nombo, but we can just flip the Tamiyo. Right, let's play out the Tamiyo here, and then we can hold up Hydroblast or Brainstorm. But I would like to get a white source off of this Flooded Strand so that we can start using our plows when we find them. If their plan is to just make a bunch of constructs, that's reasonable. Serenity will obviously smash them up pretty good when the time comes. I'm not going to Brainstorm this now, I'm just going to go to my turn, we'll get our little clue, and then we'll Brainstorm and see where things lie after that. I do want to keep this Hydroblast up at all times. Right, let's go in with the Brainstorm. Found the land, which is one of the things I'm looking for. I like having access to these things. So, probably put back a land and an Endurance here. We flip the Tamiyo. Tamiyo goes +1. Play a Windswept Heath. And then in our opponent's end step, we can shuffle, Brainstorm, or whatever. But I think I'm more inclined to crack the clue so that we just got the clue getting used up here. So it's going to be a 1-1. It's going to be a 2-2, it's going to be a 3-3, and then it's going to attack Tamiyo a little bit, but that's fine. Okay, making constructs. If they've got their boots of going faster, that can mess us up a little bit. But we could Brainstorm looking for an answer to... Okay, so it's going to Pit and Needle our Tamiyo instead. That's fine. It should be noted that Tamiyo on the back side is blue and green, but on the front side it's blue, so you can only picture it as blue. Right, I think we're just going to crack this clue token and then prepare our parade of Collector Ouphes. And he's still coming at the Tamiyo even though she is Pit and Needles. That's interesting. A Goblin Engineer. This is sacrificing as additional cost. I'm actually okay with this. Got an Endurance in hand, so we can kind of blow them out once they sack something to put this into play. I think we're fetching non-basics here. We want to be able to cast an Uru at some point. This can be a Tropical Island, so we have green for the Endurance. We'll take our free card here. Another land, always happy to have land drops. So we wait for them to activate this, we dump in an Endurance, and then we are also holding up a Hydroblast. We can probably afford to get basics now. So this can go and get a basic island. I don't think we need the Collector Ouphe just yet either, which is weird. So they should attack us and then they'll flip into the Dragon Engine perhaps. It's a Great Furnace. We'll just take the hit to begin with. It's a big chunk of our life total. We can always force action with the Engineer by Pyroblasting it. Hydroblasting it. Alright, let's destroy this permanent. Are you going to get this Phyrexian Dragon Engine back in? No, it's going to let it go. Interesting. I think I'll Brainstorm at the end step then. Okay, Tamiyo, not great right now. A couple of lands, we'll put these on top. We can play this, get rid of the land that we have on top. Probably just get another... No, we need to get another green source here, don't we? Because we're going to cast a Collector Ouphe. Hold up this Endurance. So we can double block one of these construct tokens. I think we are falling a little bit behind though. Our opponent was quite disciplined on their Engineer. 5 cards on our opponent's hand. Am I double blocking? We get massively blown out by lightning bolts. Would they keep lightning bolts in? What have they seen? They saw Shardless Agent. They saw Tamiyo. They probably do keep in lightning bolts then. Do I take 8? That's so many. I think we do. Like we die to double bolt, but if we block here, we basically die to single bolt because we just give up so much material that it doesn't matter. Okay, you've got a Goblin Engineer. What are you going to go and get? We're going to put these on the bottom of our opponent's library in a second. 7. You got it. Let's get our Endurance in. Undo their 2 tutors they put stuff in their graveyard with. Our board is almost looking okay. Where is our removal? Where is our removal? I guess we're playing out Tamiyo and Collector Ouphe. And then we're just trying to beat them in the red zone when they attack. We can triple block a construct to make sure it dies. That way we don't get blown out by a single lightning bolt. Although if they attack with everything, that might mean they have a lightning bolt and they've gone through the maths to work out that we can do the triple block here. Alright. Triple block here and single block here. Sorry Tamiyo, you're not doing the most this game. What are they going to take out? They can take out both of our Collector Ouphes. That's what they've gone for, sure. But now the Endurance can fight over the construct token a bit better. Another land, that's probably not where our opponent wants to be. We could get blown out by a Fury here. It's a Fury. Yep. Yeah, so we're just getting killed by a bunch of like fair stuff that our opponent's doing. The second Urza Saga, this game was pretty backbreaking for us and we just couldn't find any removal. Serenity is going to be too slow. Pre-War Formalwear, hello. What do you do? This gets us an Endurance, but they have lethal with these 2 things. We don't have a way of getting 2 bodies with a single Pre-War Formalwear. Yeah, so if we just go and get the Endurance, they attack with everything, we die, because we have to block here and trade, but then these kill us. No, we just didn't get anything going there. Alright, not a great start to the league, but I would have expected this to be an okay-ish matchup, to be honest. Let's see how we progress in the rest of the league. Okay, I like having a hand with removal. Let's go for Tamiyo into other friends. So we can play on basics a little bit. It leaves our white source a little bit exposed if we need to fire it off though. But we just wait until we have to play the Swords to Plowshares to play out our white source here. Swamp into Thoughtseize could be a bunch of decks. Could be Blue-Black Reanimator. It could be like the mono-black sort of Stalactite Stalker aggro-y decks. It could be start from Cradle Control. They have 1 Swamp and Thoughtseizes quite often. So lots of options. They took our Tamiyo. So I'm going to be prepared for Hedge Maze here. If we get more information, we know what we're looking for, then we can Hedge Maze. But at present, we don't necessarily know what we're trying to do. Obviously, we have our own game plan to execute, but whatever our opponent's doing. Vault of Whispers. So we're probably looking at a Black Saga Storm style deck. So Swords to Plowshares does nothing here. We're going to need to get aggressive. So we're going to be getting the Hedge Maze at the end step here, because they're not going to interfere with our lands. Phyrexian Walker. Alright, our opponent is doing the whole Spanish Inquisition thing. It's going to be a Diabolic Intent. It is. Never seen this art before. So this is Demonic Tutor, but you have to sacrifice a creature as an additional cost. Alright, cool stuff. Let's turn this into a Hedge Maze. Try and find ourselves like some Force of Will action. A land is certainly not it. A Shuko, you say? Intriguing. So let's play out this Savannah and the Shuko. So it's just in play. Next turn we drop the Nadu. We get 2 flips. A Phyrexian Walker. So they should only be playing these out when they're immediately going to do something with them. If we plow this, they might just be able to go over the top here. But the plow isn't getting any better, so we're going to fire it off. They're probably just going to cast Culling the Weak in response. They did not. Okay. That's something. This is giving them more storm, but they have less material to like bargain away or whatever. So it might not even be Saga Storm. It might just be full-on Spanish Inquisition. Lion's Eye Diamond. We don't really get to interact with any of this. I'm pretty sure our sideboard in here is going to be real strong though. Although I said that last round, and look where we are now. So, could be wrong. I think having Deafening Silence, Collector Ouphes, Force of Negations, that's a lot of good tools. Alright, so we've got Infernal Tutor, and they're going to Beseech the Mirror. No, just another Infernal Tutor cracking the Lion's Eye Diamond. This gives them not Lethal Storm, right? Okay, Beseech the Mirror. This has to be Gaia's Will, because they don't have Lethal Storm, right? 9 and 9 is 18. Yep, so then they go Walker, Lion's Eye Diamond, Direct Ritual. Yeah, I can see that's a very easy line to kill us. Didn't find our counter spells or our endurances, which our entire deck is built around. Alright, I would like some Collector Ouphes, some Force of Negations. I'll take these Hydroblasts. The Grafdigger's Cage is kind of interesting. These things are interesting. All of this is interesting. What isn't so interesting is the more taxing question here. So Serenity, obviously not best friends with some of the things we're trying to accomplish here. So like the whole Shuko plan kind of falls apart when we're trying to play Serenity. Although, and the Collector Ouphe, right? So that's two things where it's going to fall away. The Kaldra Compleat still works, so that's fine. Pre-War Formalwear, we don't really care about that one very much. Cryptic Coat being a blue card, it does make a body and can pressure our opponent, but I still don't think that's necessarily where we need to be here. We can definitely trim some Stoneforge. That's not really what we're about right now. How useful is the Prismatic Ending? We don't want these sorts of Plowshares. They can get out of here. Prismatic Ending can hit stuff they play out, but are they going to play that much stuff out? They're not going to play that much stuff out. How useful is the Serenity? The Serenity blows up our own Deafening Silence. Okay, I'm off the Serenity now. Does that change any other things that we could bring in? I don't think so. Why have I got Hydroblast in here? I just must have clicked them with the other bits. Okay, this looks a bit easier to chop from. What are we cutting? I assume our blue count is fine here. 14 plus 8. That's 22, 23, 24, 25. Okay, Endurance is just a fine beat stick. Maybe Uro is just a little slow. So that gives us, I think that's still enough blue. 21, 22, 23, 24. That is enough blue cards. Alright. We could take out a land for this Wasteland. We could take out like one of our basics. Like how useful is our planes going to be? And then we can get the Euro back in and pump our blue card count a little bit more. Sure, we'll try this. Like, are these enough pieces to get the damage done? Probably. Okay, Collector Ouphe plus Force of Negation. That's pretty good. Good enough? I don't know, but we'll see. We'll lead off on a Misty. This way we can Brainstorm protect our hand if we think our opponent is just like Thought Seizing us rather than protecting a combo kill. Sometimes they can Thought Seize and kill you on the same turn. So if we Brainstorm and hide our bits and pieces, that's not always going to be the best. Evolve Whispers. I'd be surprised if we didn't get hit by a Duress or something. There is the Duress. So let's go and get ourselves a Tropical Island. Let's attempt to protect our hand, assuming that our opponent isn't killing us this turn. Okay, so it's kind of awkward because I do like the Force of Negation here. So I guess we hide the Force of Negation on top because they can't hit a Collector Ouphe. So what are we hiding underneath it? It's the Kaldra Compleat, isn't it? Okay, so if we do it like this, we have Collector Ouphe backed up by Force of Negation next turn. If they have just a line that kills us with like Lotus Petals and Lion's Eye Diamonds, then fair enough, we lose. But generally speaking, these decks tend not to go off immediately like that. Alright, how wrong am I going to be here? Now they might have a weak attempt because they just need to do it in the face of our Collector Ouphe. Kinda weak. We appear to be doing something here. We got 6 mana and 2 cards left in hand. So this could be a Beseech the Mirror into a pretty clean win here, right? In Storm 7, they go 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, that's just a straight win from here. Alright, yeah, you got us with the turn 1 with protection hand. Like, we're not beating that, unfortunately. Alright, a very sorry start. But I don't think we can feel bad about losing to the turn 1 Duress hand. If we'd have kept the The Force we still would have lost anyway because they would have just hit that. They just hit a blank card instead, effectively. So yeah, on to round number 3. Kaldra Compleat, not a great card in our opener here. It seems to be in all of our openers though. The Cryptic Coat is fine. Like, if Source to Plowshares is good, then this hand is good. Do I like the ability to scry some stuff away here? Alright, we'll take it. I'm believing in the power of Hedge Maze a little bit here. I'm kind of feeling the fact that we don't have Ponder, if I'm being honest though. Just having a few more 1-drops to smooth out our early game would be nice. But again, we've got to try and get enough cards for our Nadu, for our Endurance and our Force of Wills. I don't know why, my brain is telling me that our opponent likes to play like Blue-Red Delver. Okay. Could still be Blue-Red Delver, we just don't know. I will be still getting a Hedge Maze here. Tamiyo is a perfectly fine thing for us to be doing with our time. Let's Windswept Heath so we can hold up a Source to Plowshares. In comes the Tamiyo. If our opponent just Entomb Reanimates, we do have a Plow to clean it up. But we are in a bit of an awkward spot because we didn't have any of our 8 cards that can stop the turn like 2 send here. Okay, so we are on Blue-Black Reanimator. There is the Entomb. So we're going to see... Oh, it's an Archon of Cruelty rather than a Traxxas. That is interesting. So I think we're going to pitch off this Kaldra Compleat. We can always put it back into our deck with an Endurance later on. You're bringing a friend. Can I afford for this Plow to get dazed? That is an interesting question. I'll get the Tundra. We have another Plow. We're doing this before our opponent draws another card because they could find a counterspell. We kind of get 2 bites at the cherry because we have 2 Plows. They did have the daze. That is unfortunate. So we're going to discard this Kaldra Compleat. And then we can have another crack at removing this on our turn. Our opponent's obviously gassed up pretty nicely from this. They've got a nice little card. Every turn that this stays in play... well, it kills us in 2 hits. So we don't have a lot of time to answer it. Right, let's plow this. We know our opponent has got 1 land and 5 spells, or 5 mystery cards in hand. So they got a Force of Will here, then we got nothing. Okay, I think we're going to see a Brainstorm in response to this Plow to try and dig up an answer. We're playing around days here. Alright, it's gone. Okay, that is step 1 achieved. The Reanimate didn't really do anything to their life total because we just made them gain all the life back again. More or less. But we're not here for trying to nickel and dime our opponent and get them down super low with like chip shots. We're here, in theory, to steamroll the game with some value stuff. Ah, a Murktide Regent. It's only a 5/5, but we are at 15. A land here would have been pretty big. We did not find one. I will deploy a Tamiyo. A Wasteland taking us off of white mana is obviously brutal. We're going to take 5 here. Alright, they have a Tamiyo of their own. Are they going to Brainstorm immediately? No. Found a land, but our opponent's Wasteland on the previous turn was just too good. I'm going to try and get myself a clue, and we're going to crack it now to play around Orcish Bowmasters. We'll touch butts with the Tamiyos, as she loves to do. And we will draw a card. It is a Shuko. Not quite where I need to be. But if I could get a little bit more time in this game, then it could get us where we need to go. I think if we start Shuko Naduing, we will win this game. But do we get to survive that long? So our opponent's cracking for 5 here. Another Wasteland. These Wastelands have been absolutely savage. This is kind of the difference between playing a deck where all your spells cost 1 and 2 and a deck like ours where we're trying to cast 3 drops. I guess it is worth playing on here because we can play out the Shuko and then we can drop the Nadu next turn. It does give our opponent a little bit more information about what we're doing. Let's make our Tamiyo a little bit stronger. Not that it's going to matter here. It's a 1/3 and it's blocking a 5/5. But it's free to do so. Then next turn we play the Nadu, get a couple of flips. Hopefully it finds us the ability to then get some more flips. So we get like a land and a Tamiyo. Now we do need to draw a land for this to work. And our opponent needs to not have anything when they've got 2 clues up and 5 cards in hand. Right, we need a land. We need our opponent to not have anything. Do you believe? Shouldn't have believed. Okay, let's go to the sideboard here. Blue-Black Reanimator. We've got some tools for this, but I've been saying that every game and it's not been working out. So, Grafdigger's Cage in, Surgical Extraction in. Assimilation Aegis is pretty good here as well. We can take out something big and then we get to become it. I don't think we're going to board any more than these 3 cards. So what are we not looking at doing stuff with here? Prismatic Ending beats up on a Tamiyo, so I definitely want that. And then we do need to keep the Force of Wills in, especially when we start ripping with the Nadus. That becomes a good place to be. They don't have XR removal, so the Pre-War Formalwear is still pretty hot. I do like Kaldra as a way of beating down. Yeah, it's tough. What are we taking out here? Like, it probably has to be something in our 3-drop slots. Do I think Uro is good here? Take out a couple of Uros. And is it Stoneforge or a Shardless Agent? I think we probably need to keep Stoneforge because it's lower on the curve, which means maybe we're getting rid of a Shardless Agent. Actually, let's get rid of a Cryptic Coat and replace it with the Assimilation Aegis. So we've got some decent removal here. Alright, I'll keep this one. We're just going to play around days and get Hedge Maze to try and find our second land. We don't want to play the Tamiyo because it's our blue card for Force of Will. I could play out the Shuko, but that exposed us to Wasteland, and I'd rather use the Hedge Maze to try and find that additional land. But we get 2 looks at a land on this next turn. I guess we're not fighting over a Thoughtseize. So they might take the Tamiyo here. They took the Shuko, okay. Be my guest. Right, Hedge Maze, I believe in you. Look at that. Always had it. So our opponent knows we put a land on top because that's the most sensible thing that we put on top here. Okay. I think we are getting a Tundra here. I'm jamming this. So worst case scenario, our opponent dazes, untaps and wastelands us. That is pretty much the worst case scenario. But this getting in is good news. I'll say yes to this. I will get a Pre-War Formalwear because we already have the Stoneforge Mystic ready to go. So we can go and get that Kaldra. Thoughtseize and me, you go ahead. I'm going to take the Pre-War Formalwear that we just tutored for. I'm going to take the Stoneforge if we can't get the Kaldra. I'm going to take the Pre-War Formalwear. Feels like our opponent is probably on a fairer game plan, which is what I would assume in post-board. They're going to cut some number of their reanimation stuff and then try and play a fairer game. Okay. You can fail push that. That's not ideal, but I can live with it. No, they're not wastelanding me, so I can live with that. Tamiyo into Brainstorm is a pretty interesting play here. Alright, let's go for Tamiyo. Let's Brainstorm. We haven't played a land yet. Let's go like this. So we flip over the Tamiyo. We start going upstairs with it. We've still got Force of Will. We can play around with days if we have to. And then next turn we can just have the Endurance ready to go, as well as having the Stoneforge if that's our preferred option. So I think we're actually in the first good spot we've been in all league, to be honest. So our opponent is very much the one under pressure. 1 mana Planeswalkers will do that to you. Their lifesteal is also getting a touch low. Like 13, if they reanimate something, that's quite a big deal. Like if they're pitching like 7 life, all of a sudden they're almost within a single swing of a Kaldra. So they could end up in a weird situation where they get an Atraxa in. Let's say they've used a fetch land, they get an Atraxa in, they have to just chump block with the Atraxa. So how 5 cards have entered the exile zone. So there's going to be a big Murktide. I think we fight over this one. And it worked. We have an Endurance on top of our library. I think that is fine. I will plus this. Do I want to Stoneforge Mystic or do I want to Endurance here? I think I'm just going to hold up the Endurance. We've already got the Tamiyo. So we've got this game-winning plan ready to go. We don't need to add more stuff to the board. We need to make sure our opponent doesn't just randomly put an Arcane of Cruelty into play and make us sacrifice our Tamiyo. And Endurance is pretty good at stopping that. Polluted Delta. Do I need to bring the beats right now with an Endurance? I don't think so. I think we're just going to sit on our Tamiyo. Let's just plus this. Play a land, so then we have the Endurance around a daze. And what are we going to see out of this? It could be an Orcish Bowmaster. That doesn't actually stop the Tamiyo. It's only if they have a second Bowmaster that actually makes a difference. And if they play a Murktide, we don't care. If they play a Murktide, it could be bait for an Entomb Reanimate. Alright, the Tamiyo just sorted it out. Very nice. Yeah, this all seems fine. Let's just submit. No blue mana. But we have the graveyard covered. And a plan. Alright, I'll keep this. I can definitely see how this could fall apart, but we don't necessarily need to cast a Tamiyo just yet. We've got a plan of Shuko, make our opponent panic and try and counter it. We've got the Endurance that we can hold back with. Now, are we going to hold up the mana to play around days with this Endurance? Consign to memory. Yep, that can stop triggers like Stoneforge Mystic. That makes some sense. I'm going to play out a basic forest and just hold up the endurance around days, because if they go Entomb Reanimate this turn, we want to be able to fight it as best as possible. A Ponder, so we're not getting Entomb Reanimate on. We could get Thoughtseize here, which would be okay. Wonder what they take in that case. Probably the Stoneforge. Alright, there's a Wasteland. So now I'm inclined to deploy the Stoneforge. If we get Dazed and Wastelanded here, that's pretty bad. Right, that's step one of that plan for our opponent. And I imagine they're quite likely to Wasteland us off of white mana, since that's our removal colour. Obviously they're going to take their turn first. There's no reason to Wasteland until they've seen their card and formulated their plan. Maybe they can use the mana better. Alright, we're 100% getting Wastelanded this turn. Goodbye, Savannah. Yep. Okay, can we draw one of our 19 lands left in the deck? We can. I would like to get a basic island, I think, and deploy a Tamiyo. Something I'm worried about here is Murktide Regent, but I'm not going to pitch cast Endurance to deal with their graveyard now and then get caught out. Sure, you can trade 1 for 1 with my Tamiyo. Guess who's got another one? Do I want to just try and get a land here? I think I do. We're going to try and brainstorm looking for a land, and then we can play the Tamiyo. Okay, we missed. We missed on all those things I wanted. Yikes. That's really bad, isn't it? Source Plowshares we can't cast, so that can get out of here. And then I guess we're not doing anything with Brainstorm right now anyway. I hate this, but I think we're going to now deal with the... Actually, let's cast the Shuko first and see if our opponent reacts to it. Going to put more cards in their graveyard. Okay, they didn't react to it. I'm going to try and stop a Murktide coming into play next turn. We still have a piece of graveyard hate if they're going for a combo line. That's why I'm taking this particular line, because we still have an answer. And when we know we're not in a position to deal with a Murktide for a while, because we have to get through those other cards still. Are they stuck on one land? They are. Okay. I could fire off a Brainstorm here, see 2 fresh cards. Or I could just play this Tamiyo, and then we have a 1/3 attacker that's going to get us some clues. And then next turn we can Brainstorm, seeing 3 fresh cards and flipping the Tamiyo. That seems like the better use of our overall resources. We're going to see a Fatal Push. Now they haven't got lands. It's an Entomb. Okay, so we have a shot with this extraction. It's an Archon of Cruelty. Understood. So they might have had to send last turn and waiting for the mana to get the second part of it going. But let's just see what they're up to and if our Surgical Extraction holds. If their reanimation spell happens this turn and it resolves, and it sort of works through our extraction, I mean, then we are 100% dead. But they didn't do that, so that's nice. Let's Brainstorm. There's no threat of Bowmasters over here. We did find the land. We could just put back the Endurance right now and rely on this Surgical. We could put back the Force and play the Tamiyo. So this wants to be a Tundra. They've really enjoyed killing our Tamiyos this game. How about number 3? We've still got Surgical around a days. But if they send it and have Force of Will, then we just lose everything. Tamiyo of their very own. They have a Brainstorm to go with it, or not? A Prismatic Ending. If they had a Brainstorm, would they have used it last time when they didn't have their mana? I think they would have. I don't believe they have a Brainstorm, because I think they would have had better turns available if they did. If they're just like super duper patient and get us here, then that sucks. But the information they've been giving us is that they don't have a Brainstorm. Especially when they were on one land. And then when they eventually drew their next land. Alright, so they are Force of Willing here. Okay. That is a Force of Will that is not going to get pointed at our Surgical Extraction if they go for that sort of combo line. Sure, we get a clue. We can start cracking the clue. I'm not going to crack it yet. I would like to hold our mana open to play around a days. And then we can crack it in the end step. We're both just going to be cracking clues off at one another. I'm not sure who that's going to favour, to be honest. In theory, our top end goes over our opponent's top end. But they might be able to transform their Tamiyo this turn. If they find a land, crack the clue, Tamiyo flips. They shuffled their library. Okay, so did find a land in the end. I imagine that was what they were looking for here. Because if they're the ones with the Tamiyo flipped, that's obviously going to be an issue. We don't have that many answers to the Tamiyo. We have to attack it, and we don't really have the tools to do that right now. Let's draw a card. our Prismatic Ending is in the graveyard. We're going to need to either Endurance that back in and try and draw it, or we can flip the Tamiyo. Okay, we're obviously still attacking. We're not going to deal any damage because of their Tamiyo. But we get a clue here. We can crack the clue. Maybe we can flip our Tamiyo and work towards the answer. Our opponent probably doesn't have an answer for our flip Tamiyo as easily as we have an answer for theirs. Alright, we didn't have anything there. I guess we haven't been through a Hedge Maze yet, have we? No. So we have the Surveil available. Okay, let's play this out and try and Surveil for next turn. Brainstorm for our opponent. So we need to find something in this next turn cycle between our Tamiyo clue, our Hedge Maze, and our draw step. Otherwise, this Tamiyo is going to be a problem. They could minus it. Thoughtseize. Not a lover of this one. I'm going to take out this Archon of Cruelty now, I think. This Archon of Cruelty makes it into play, we lose the game. We can get some information here. A Force of Will, pitching Murktide. Well, that's a pretty horrible one for us, isn't it? Because they're going to take the swords, and then it feels like they're about to reanimate the Archon of Cruelty, right? And then we're going to have literally nothing going on. That's the only reason you would Force of Will in that situation. Otherwise, you're just playing Protect the Queen on the Tamiyo. There it is. Alright, get in the bin, us. So, goodbye Wasteland, I think, here. Now we can draw Nadu. Nadu does some work. We can get flipping. Yep, we're going upstairs with Tamiyo, makes sense. So now we have two world-ending threats to deal with. But Nadu can provide everything we need. No Force of Will, you are not required. Go Gadget, Nadu. Not a Nadu. This does answer one of our problems. But how are we answering this Tamiyo? They know we have this in hand. Is it better to keep this for a Brainstorm? We could Brainstorm into... What could we Brainstorm into? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're a little bit ways off of Kaldra. So we play this out, we have 6 lands. Next turn this goes up to 8. So we don't get to cast Kaldra with this. So I think it's better to hold this for a Brainstorm. An Entomb in the upkeep. Okay. This is just going to filter their draws just slightly because they're not going to be able to draw this Attractor they don't want. Now if they can put the Attractor into play, then yikes. Okay, so they're getting back the Reanimate rather than going upstairs with the Tamiyo. How do I feel about that? I guess it's the less risky play, because what if we draw a Prismatic Ending and kill them? They don't know that we only have one Prismatic Ending and it's in the graveyard. Okay, Attractor, show me what you're bringing to the table. Alright, so what are we going to take here? Probably well, they could take the Brazen Borrow or the Tamiyo. Either of them are pretty good. They're going to take the Days for sure. So we've got... oh no, they took the Fatal Push, sorry. Instead of the Days, what we're talking about. Tamiyo, Polluted Delta, no Entomb, kept the Thoughtseize, no Brazen Borrower. And they played out the Polluted Delta. Okay. Kaldra. This is going to get Thoughtseized away next turn. And then we take 7, and then we have 1 turn to answer the Attractor. So the top card of our library has to be a Swords to Plowshares or an Assimilation Aegis. A Shardless Agent could maybe do it. A Nadu is another draw step potentially, as well as, well, another couple of draws. So that could be good enough. We are very cooked here. Thoughtseize, goodbye Kaldra. Wonder why they didn't play out the Tamiyo there. Alright. Here goes nothing. Shardless Agent, it is your time to shine here. A Stoneforge Mystic. Do you know what that does? Sweet nothing. Because we don't have the mana to get the Assimilation Aegis here. I don't think there's anything we have that matters here. Assimilation Aegis. We can't get it into play because we're 1 mana shy. And the Attractor just sails over the top and kills us. Oh dear, we are getting crushed today. But we did take a game off of them. This is kind of one of the decks that our theory has been built around. And it's not really working. And we're going to explain that at the end of the league. But we've got a couple more rounds to go and we can try and put some wins on the board somewhere. If you've been watching my content and thinking, I'd like to play some Legacy too, then check out 3for1 Trading, one of Europe's leading Magic the Gathering retailers. They have weekly offers and upload new cards every Wednesday. And it's not just Legacy stuff they sell. They have a beautiful selection of vintage and old school cards too. Support from sponsors like 3for1 Trading make it possible for me to put out videos and help keep Legacy alive, so why not give them some love? Click their link in the description below and use my code COW3 to enjoy free worldwide shipping on your first order over €500. Okay, our hand looks like the hand of a good deck, so we'll keep it. Let's start with Misty Rainforest. I don't want to crack it ideally, I want to just leave it in play and then next turn we can play a Trop and then we have Brainstorm fetch land ready to go. I'm not going to go and get a Surveil land here, I don't think it's worth giving up our fetch land for that when we have a Brainstorm. Alright, so we're looking at Eldrazi here. They didn't start with a line breaker, so that's good news. Let's play a Tropical Island as intended, and we'll move on. So we could have access to Brainstorm, cast a Force of Will, cast a Source to Plowshares. Cavern of Souls, get ruined me. This guy. Here comes the Brainstorm. Can we get a plow for this? No plow. We definitely don't want to draw this. We'll put this back. Sure. So this is quite a big chunk of our life total. We're keeping the Force because this can still count as some things like the Kozilek's Command or the Chalice. Let's just get Hedge Maze in. We don't need this. Do we care if our opponent sees the Nadu? 3-4 is not irrelevant stats. We could just play this to trade with this. It could just be a 3-mana removal spell. Honestly, I think that's fine. We got Tundra here. Here comes the bird. So we can trade for a line breaker. It's fine. A glaring flesh raker. Yep, we can't kill you. Secluded Courtyard, naming Eldrazi, big surprise. What have we got here? A Grim Monolith. Are we countering this? It's probably the only thing we're going to get a chance to counter right now, so say no to this. Now, what are they doing with their line breaker? They can pump their flesh raker and attack with just the flesh raker. Do I take 5 here? Do I trade Nadu for a flesh raker? I think I trade here. We can Brainstorm into a Source to Plowshares. Let's try and do that. No, but Uro is pretty good. What do we want here? We want both of these lands, I think. We're putting back the Brainstorms, they both go away. We put back Nadu, that's just no Nadu for us. Which is another way that we can get through this. I think it is Nadu and Brainstorm that go back here. So we go and get Tundra here. And we go for the Uro. This puts us back up to 14. We can still die from 14 relatively easily. This finds us, I was going to say this finds us a land that could maybe find us a... It could have found us a Source to Plowshares and we could put in the land and blow up something up. That's not what happened. But next turn we get to cast Uro, which should be the biggest thing on the board. These lists don't tend to run the Devour of Destiny anymore. Doesn't mean they can't have it though. Kozilek's Command. Targeting my Uro. I don't know this very much. Let's go and get ourselves a Tropical Island and Brainstorm. If we find Force of Will blue card, I will point it at this Kozilek's Command. We did not find any of those things. We don't need a second Stoneforge. And we're going to draw the other card anyway. Okay. So we failed on Proposition Uro here. But our opponent isn't doing much with their turn there. If that's all they're getting rid of. Or am I going to be incredibly wrong here? And they're going to play something super scary. Endless One. That does get haste off of the line breaker. But this turn we get to play Stoneforge, go and get the equipment and bring back the Nadu. I think that's what we have to do here. Pre-War Formalwear. Pass Pre-War Formalwear. Get the Nadu back. And I guess we put another body in play. Tropical Island is good as any. Okay, we've got some meat to stick in the way of our opponent's enormous creatures. And they try and remove our stuff, we do get some free cards. Thought Not Seer with no cards in our hand, but we still get to draw a card when we kill this. They give this haste. No, they're not giving the Thought Not Seer haste. They're coming in with a 6/3 Eldrazi Linebreaker. What do I want to put in front of this? This has Trample. That is a pretty important stat. I think we have to trade off the Nadu. Is that true? If we put the... So we can... How much is this to equip? 3. So we get 2 flips with Pre-War Formalwear here. Can we block like this? We take 3, go to 2. And then we can start moving the Pre-War Formalwear back and forth to draw extra cards, hopefully including a Source to Plowshares. I will play this out. We will equip this here. 1, 2, 3. We got a land. Okay, let's move it back to the Nadu. 1, 2. Do we want to move it back to the Nadu? I think so. Then we have the bigger body for the vigilance attack and for soaking up trample damage. Next turn we can put an Uro into play, but we're on 2 life here, right? Our opponent just attacks with everything and we die. Will they see the really simple line of attacking with their creatures? I think they probably will. They could make a mistake here and target our creature. Okay. You got me. We didn't have to go through that. Alright. Removal spell. Don't have any more removal spells. Okay. Wasteland for their Cavern of Souls seems pretty good. Hydroblast does not work on the Linebreaker because it is devoid, so it doesn't have a colour. We could bring in Serenity because it blows up Chalice of the Void. However, it also blows up things like Assimilation Aegis and Cryptic Coat and Pre-War Formalwear and all that sort of good stuff. So I'm not convinced that we want the Serenity here. Also blows up our own Shardless Agents. Oh dear, what are we doing? I like the Uro still. Endurance is a reasonable body. It can kill their scary thing. Tamiyo is not very good in this matchup. Get rid of a couple of Tamiyo. Let's try this. Okay. Is it more important to get Tamiyo down or to hold up a Source of Plowshares? I think it's just get the Tamiyo down because if we can flip this, it minuses their creature's power and toughness, and that's kind of a big deal. Sorry, their power, not their toughness. So we can reduce the amount of damage we're taking slightly, and we also give them a distraction. Alright, just Karakas on our guy. That is okay with me. Alright, let's go and get Stoneforge Mystic into play. So yes to this. Do we just get the Kaldra? I think we do. Just have the biggest game in town. This is going to force them into interacting with our Stoneforge. If they go for a Wasteland here, that doesn't matter because you've got the white source. And then we just get to start bodying them with Kaldra. Now, one problem with Kaldra is the card Kozilek's Command. Because that can exile our Kaldra quite cheaply. But right now they don't have any colourless mana. They would need to find like one of their soul lands in order to Kozilek's Command. Path of the Dead. So that is a Cavern of Souls with a different name. Can we Wasteland it right now? We don't really need to. But okay. Am I brainstorming first or are we going to play the Tamiyo out? Let's get these two going. I think I'm actually just going to brainstorm here. Okay. Force of Will, not so hot. Actually, that's not true. It gets rid of the Kozilek's Command. That's pretty good. Don't think we need Endurance, and we get rid of one Nadu. Like, we're going to be drawing them again in a minute anyway. But we're just riding our big boy to victory, hopefully. We've got a Source to Plowshares if they play anything that we care about. So, a Linebreaker, for example. Is this going to be the Exile or an Artifact guy? It is the Exile and Artifact guy. This can't be counterspelled. A little bit on the rude side. Not going to lie. I don't think this is worth Source to Plowsharing. Let's get another Stoneforge in. Let's get the Shuko. Yeah, I think it's the Shuko. Because we're pretty close to doing gross Nadu stuff. I think that will be what our opponent's doing. We have a Force of Will. Again, we can't leverage it against that many things, but we can stop a Chalice. We can stop... now they've played the Ivug, we can stop a Glaring Fleshraker. An uncounterable Thought-Knot Seer. Oh, I love being Thought Seized after I've tutored for something. I'm a really big fan of that happening to me. It's like my favourite thing in the world. Okay. Yikes. Goodbye Shuko, I guess, here. That's the easy pick, I think. They could just take the Plow, because they don't want us to redraw from killing their Thought-Knot Seer. That's pretty reasonable too. But it is tough for what we've got going on here. They took the Plow. Yep. I'm not going to counterspell a low spell. I refuse. They can attack with the Wastegate Battle Mage. We can trade here. We can trade one of our guys for this. That is a good exchange, which is almost miraculous. Stoneforge Mystic. It's not the one I wanted. 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4, 5, 6. So they have a 7-drop. I'm just trying to work out if we want to Prismatic Ending this low spell or not. I don't think we do. We can play out a Shuko. And then we can deploy this Tamiyo. It forces them to do this. That doesn't really get us where we want to be. Do we just... If we Prismatic Ending this and our opponent immediately plays a Chalice, I'm going to be really annoyed. I guess we can force it with a Chalice. Alright, let's just stop them from getting like 7 drops. We don't want our opponent having access to things like Null Drifter or whatever. I don't think they're going to do anything with white mana here. They did not. Okay. Can I have a land, please? Would love to draw a land. Alright, here comes a Line Breaker. There it is. It's uncounterable, so it's big and it's hitting us right now. If we draw a land, the Nadu gets to do some stuff before the Karakas. So we get to equip once and then they bounce once. So it's a 3 mana draw 2 that taps their land down. Not ideal, but if it finds us a source to Plowshares, I'll take it. Wasteland. That is the end of the game, I think. No, we're not winning this one. Alright, we have put ourselves squarely into the dirt, this particular league. Okay, we have 1 round left to go. We need to put more than just 1 game win on the board. Can we get a round win? I really hope so. Let's try. Alright, there's an important game. We need to make sure that we can get a round win. Does this hand look useful? We have a Force of Will to stop spooky turn 1 combos. Our mana base doesn't look great here. I don't know, like, we have a Force of Will, we have a Plow, so we kind of have spells and creatures covered for a little period of time. We've got, like, half a Ponder wrapped up in this land. Yes, I'll keep a land on top. It's not a green land for Endurance, though. Wooded Foothills. Is this going to be the... Oh, okay. Is this Cradle Control, then? When I see Wooded Foothills at the moment, I think of the red-green Stompy deck. But that's just because I'm playing against it a little bit. I will play out a Snow-Covered Plains. I don't want to Brainstorm here because that's our only blue card. If we Brainstorm and don't find another blue card, then we just shields down. A Scythe Cat Cub. That is fine. We can source to Plowshares this. Let's see if they crack this to gain an additional 1 life. They could do, or they could save their fetch for other uses. A Nadu. Okay. Are we casting this Brainstorm? I think we are. I'm not really liking some of the bits and pieces in our hand right now. We have some weird lines that we could take. Okay, so this is going to get us towards Nadu and Endurance as options. So we'll put Savannah and Karakas on top. And then we'll deploy this land. And we will pass. We can pitch cast Endurance if we need to. Seems like a weird play that we're unlikely to want to do. How do I feel about the Scythe Cat Cub? I think we are just going to counterspell it. A lot of these decks tend not to run natural order anymore. I would ideally like to hold on to the Force of Will, but we know what we're drawing and we know it's not great. Right, so we're going to take out our graveyard. That's fine for right now because the Pre-War Formalwear hasn't done its thing yet. So we're going to draw another land. And then we're going to have this Endurance to deploy, possibly as a removal spell. A White of the Reliquary, sure. Are we attacking here? Endurance pretty good against the white as a general rule. Black and green, is this a second white? It's a Green Sun Zenith, X equals 1. So this is going to be another Hierarch, a Safekeeper. Okay, Safekeeper's pretty good. This allows them to sacrifice lands. I don't think we're playing out the Endurance here. And then we're going to try and ambush them in combat and force them to sacrifice a bunch of things. I'm going to play out this Karakas. If our Endurance dies, we can then Pre-War Formalwear it back. So it's not the end of the world. We can also start doing Nadu loops using our own Karakas. But I think trying to snag a bunch of stuff with this Endurance is probably the best plan. Dryad Arbor, that sacrifices to White of the Reliquary and Sylvan Safekeeper. Alright, so this is getting exalted. Let's get this in. This is going to force them to sacrifice something. Probably just going to be a Dryad Arbor that goes. So we can block here, they can sacrifice their Dryad Arbor to put a creature into their graveyard and turn their White of the Reliquary into a bigger creature. Am I willing to take that trade or am I just going to take the 3? I think I'm just going to take the 3 here. But this just gives us another body if we draw the Shuko. Okay, that is not the Shuko. Alright, let's get Nadu involved. I will play out this land. We're going to have uses for lands in this game. So our plan here is block White of the Reliquary, bounce our Nadu, and draw a free card. And if our Nadu dies somehow, we get Pre-War Formalwear going. We also get to block with the Pre-War Formalwear this turn. Block with the Endurance so we can bring it back to the Pre-War Formalwear and then start paying 3 to equip this. It's not very cost effective though. Alright, so they got a Dried Arbor out with a fetch land. They're going to sacrifice this Dried Arbor and turn it into a more interesting land. Gaia's Cradle. That's certainly an interesting land. 2 cards in hand. Keen-Eyed Curator. That is pretty good against our Pre-War Formalwear plan. Understood. I like this guy a lot, the old raccoon. You attack with 1 creature, we just Nadu and return to hand. If you don't, we probably still return our Nadu to hand anyway. Or do we? What could their 1 card in hand? I don't think they're going to be running Snuff Out. They could have Fatal Push. Snuff Out's more of a sideboard card for these decks. I don't think Snuff Out is particularly main deck playable. Okay, so now we're going to get our little block off. And then our Nadu's going to jump back to our little hand. If their last card in hand is a removal spell, then they've kind of threaded the needle nicely here. Can remove this in response. We still get a card, but then they can Keen-Eyed Curator it when we try and Pre-War Formalwear it. And then we're kind of in trouble. Prismatic Ending. Not great when they have a Sylvan Safekeeper around. We don't take damage this turn. How do we get through what our opponent's putting down though? We need to draw a Shuko or a Stoneforge. Or a Shardless Agent. Let's take what land we want here. Probably a Tundra. Sure, you exile that card. You be my guest. So we need green and blue mana here. Alright, Shardless Agent, you go wild over there. Get me the goodies. A Shuko, yes. That is the exact card I was hoping for. That is a thing of beauty. Alright, we're finally doing it. Now, some may say there are easier ways to assemble the Nadu Shuko combo, and those people would be 100% right. But, am I the first person in history to get a Shuko off of the Shardless Agent on the clutch turn? Maybe. Who knows? Our opponent should probably scoop to this. We're going to draw 6 cards. So we're getting some cards off the Nadu now. If our opponent had removal, they would have used it already. They're going to phase out our Nadu now. Talon Gates. They should have done this in response to the very first activation we did of the Shuko. Let's crack this. Let's go and get Tundra. Or your friend and mine, Stoneforge Mystic. I'll have a Kaldra Compleat, please. Alright. We've assembled a pretty impressive board. Now, they probably have Field of the Dead, so they can... Not Field of the Dead. The Cave. I can't remember what it's called now. But it's a cave that copies a card in the land card in the graveyard. So they can sacrifice the Talon Gates with the Sylvan Safekeeper. Then they can go and get the little cave thing and phase our creature out again. A Windswept Heath. 1 card in our opponent's hand. Alright, so attacking with a 5 power guy. I'm going to take 5 this turn. I think we're okay once we start doing Nadu stuff. Alright, let's get our Shardless Agent. Get some triggers on. Stoneforge Mystic, why not? Let's have some cards off of you as well. Don't mind a Force of Will. It's a nice little insulation against our opponent having anything spooky. Leaving the Nadu till last to activate, because last time we did it was when they decided to phase out. So if that's how they want to play it, we're going to do it this way, where our last creature that we target is the Nadu, so that way we get more cards if our opponent wants to play that same way again. Okay, so let's activate this Stoneforge Mystic. I'll have a Kaldra Compleat, please. I will cast a Pre-War Formalwear with the intention of equipping it to our Phyrexian Germ token so it has Vigilance. Let's equip it here. Send in with our very tooled up Germ token. It has many, many keywords, each richer than the last. Alright, let's start doing Nadu things again. We need another land if we want to cast this Endurance. We could just pitch cast an Endurance here, since we're going to be discarding cards anyway. Alright, let's get rid of those Dried Arbors. You can shoot them back up again. But we're just going to shrink your guys. Alright, you're going to Keen-Eyed Curator some lands away. Go ahead. They should get rid of just the Dried Arbor, it's fine. They probably want a Dried Arbor in their deck. So if they just take 1 out here, it gives a creature underneath the Keen-Eyed Curator. They can obviously just take our Endurance as well. Am I going to plow here? Let's Prismatic Ending, targeting the Sylvan Safekeeper. We maybe could have done this in a cleaner order. Yeah, you sacrifice a land. Well, we're discarding cards in a second anyway. I just get rid of a Tamiyo. You go ahead. Nothing really gets through the Kaldra. Get rid of one of my Tamiyos. I don't think we have anything outside of a basic left to fetch with this Misty Rainforest. So I can put 2 bits of additional power on this. The problem is the first strike is just going to kill their guy. You can't really attack into a Germ token. It just doesn't work. So even if they make this larger, it's not going to matter. 1 card left in our opponent's hand. Alright, let's equip the Germ. Let's get in with the Friction Germ token. How many cards have we got left? 24. I probably get to see a lot of information here, which might be useful for them. Alright, they've had enough. This is just going to be unblockable with kill next turn, and they know we've got Force of Will to back it up. Alright, we got a game win. We need to just turn this into a match win. So, I like the Grafdigger's Cage here. It stops Green Sun Zenith. Uro, not so great into our opponent's stuff here. How much do I like any of these things? I think the Surgical Extraction isn't without merit, but it's not exactly where I want to be. So I think we are just boarding in 3 cards and leaving the rest of the deck as is. So we need to take one more card out to make room for these things. I like the ending. I like the Stoneforges a lot here. They help us get over what our opponent's doing. Is Endurance that big a deal? How good is this? Like, obviously, the Shardless Agent won us that game. We're not really looking at pitching to the Endurance that much. I think we still want the Forces. We're going to take out one Shardless Agent. Your service has been noted, Shardless Agent. You did an absolute solid for us and pretty much won us that game by hitting the Shuko. We're asking a lot from this Brainstorm. If we get nailed with a turn 1 Thoughtseize, that's going to suck. I believe in Brainstorm, and Stoneforge Mystic isn't too shabby as a Magic the Gathering card either. We have a Wasteland, so we can cut out some kind of Cradle action. We're probably going to see a Mana Dork of some description. There it is. A Mana Dork. Tamiyo. Okay, I like that quite a lot. So let's just jam this right away. We're going to keep our fetch lands. These can get us green mana. I think I'd rather lead on white mana as well. This can shut down some of their going wide strategies. And then hopefully we can find something to shut down their going tall strategy. Thoughtseize, not a fan of this. But would you rather get rid of the Stoneforge or the Brainstorm? It should be the Brainstorm here, because our hand really needs this Brainstorm fix it. Now, this might mean they have a second Thoughtseize. Don't be doing that to me, opponent. Okay, this is green mana in the pool, not black. Have we dodged it? A Sylvan Safekeeper. Sure, you got it, boss. So we're going to go and get ourselves a clue here. Grafdigger's Cage. Sure, I like that one. No more Green Sun Zenith for you. They haven't cast any yet, so the chance of them having one in hand relatively high. Let's Brainstorm. Okay, I like a decent chunk of these things. I want to play the Grafdigger's Cage this turn. I don't think I want to give up Wasteland. We're definitely putting back Snow-Covered Plains. I think we probably put back one land here is fine. This flips, or plus, play this out. I kind of want to get another Tundra based on our hand here. So I don't really want to get wasted off of white mana. Yeah, sure, we're going to get Tundra here. We'll deploy this Grafdigger's Cage, so there's going to be no Green Sun Zenith action. If they do have Natural Order, we don't have to worry about that either. They could Force of Vigor and take out the Cage and the Clue token here. That's not exactly a great trade for them. But if they need to do it, they need to do it. Quirion Ranger. Sure. They did have the Force of Vigor. Makes me look like I know what I'm talking about when our opponent immediately does the thing that I mentioned. Okay, so they can attack Tamiyo for 1 because they can attack with the Safekeeper and it gets a pump from the Hierarch. So they must have a Green Sun Zenith in hand. That's what would make sense here. A Thoughtseize. Sure. What would you like? Probably the removal spell, but it could just be a Brainstorm. The Assimilation Aegis is something we can't get back with a Tamiyo as well, so I think it makes some amount of sense. They have 1 card in hand. Maybe they're on a Natural Order line, which is why it's so important for them to just blow these up so they can get like an Atraxa in over the top. So, okay, the Dryad Arbor is the one coming in. Sure. So they get to put 1 damage on the Tamiyo. If we want to buy something back, it'll have to die, but we don't really care about that. Okay, I'm going to Wasteland the Dryad Arbor here. Let's plus the Tamiyo. I could just plow their Sylvan Safekeeper. I could just plow their Noble Hierarch as well. Let's try and plow the Hierarch. Would you like to sack your land? No. Okay. So now they can't attack the Tamiyo unless they have another Hierarch. A Wooded Foothills, 1 card left in their hand. On our turn, we can Brainstorm. I don't believe our opponent has Orcish Bowmaster in their deck. I don't think that's the thing that these decks are playing. Let's plus this. I'm going to play out this Misty Rainforest. I could Brainstorm now. If they randomly do have an Orcish Bowmasters, we're going to feel real bad about that. I think what we're going to do is wait for them to crack this Wooded Foothills for either to play a spell or to surveil land or whatever, and then we can fire in a Brainstorm. Because we just don't need to do anything right now. We're already winning the game. Oh wow, they're just scooping up because Tamiyo's going to pop. Alright, we got a match. Whew. I was worried that we weren't going to get a single match win today. But we absolutely dismantled our opponent by just doing like blue-white gamer stuff here. Awesome. Also, Nadu is a busted Magic the Gathering card. I think we can all agree. So obviously a 1-4 record is bad. Let's talk about where some of the ideas that we had came up against reality today. So we do have a bunch of stuff that is good against the meta here. You know, endurance, force of will are things we do want to have access to. White removal is very strong as well. Now, part of the problem is what we're pairing it with. So we, like, obviously, you know, Nadu is great when we're comboing, but when we're not comboing it is a 3-mana play. 10 3-mana spells here. That is a lot. Now, sometimes endurance counts as a 3-mana spell as well. We don't always want to be pitching this. Like, against the fair matchups, we want to hardcast this. So if we move this into the 3-drop slot, you can see the problem here. This is a very heavily stacked 3-drop slot. And when we were playing against decks where this being pitch cast wasn't really the thing we wanted, we just wanted to actually cast it, then we were very susceptible to having our land disrupted. And that happened against the Eldrazi deck. They just, you know, Wasteland us twice and that was game over. Against the Blue-Black Reanimator deck, they just Wasteland us a couple of times. They did have one really good hand that we just weren't ever beating. But there's only so much we can do if we want to have all of these things. So I don't think... I know this is not going to come as a surprise to anybody here, but I don't think the Shardless Agent is the way to be here. The Stoneforge Mystic was pretty good for what it was doing. The lack of ponder here did hurt quite a bit. But if we turn these into ponders, our deck does get better outside of trying to cast this pitch cast spell, right? So how good is the endurance if we're not pitch casting it? It's very good against just generic sort of tempo-y decks that are trying to play little bits of stuff out of the graveyard, whether it's pumping up Goyfs, whether it's trying to get Murktide Regents into play, or Dragon's Rage Channelers, Delirious. It's got a lot of game there. It's pretty good against a decent chunk of decks, but I just don't think we can necessarily support it like this. I think there is a good deck that runs Force of Will and Endurance that we could build. I don't believe this is it. Trying to do the Nadu plan to try and bridge the gap and make sure that we had enough cards didn't quite work. I've played some like bank control builds before with like Planar Genesis and stuff, and they were okay because you're lowering your curve. Instead of having these 3-drops to power out, you've got 2-drops, but I just don't think it's quite where it needs to be. It's just too susceptible to not having enough lands. Like, we need to cast these spells, and even against matchups where we've got the tools we want, like the Endurance against Blue-Black Reanimator, they're just playing 1 and 2 mana spells pretty much exclusively. If we're trying to cast 3-drop spells and we can't, because of like a Wasteland or Daisies, like clipping our spells or whatever, then we just fall behind hugely. So this deck did not really come together. That's exactly what you saw happen. We also had like Shardless Agent cascading into stuff was, you know, it was reasonable. This didn't feel like an embarrassing card to be playing. It does do 2 things. So if they daze it, you're still left with a 2/2. So it's, in terms of 3-mana spells that you can cast, this one isn't too bad because at least it's casting 2 spells. Now, if you cascade into something that doesn't do anything on the board, like a Prismatic Ending or a Plow and there's no creatures, then that can feel a bit awkward. But sometimes you're just going to cascade right into Shuko and live the absolute dream and win the game because of it. So there's definitely something here with some of the pieces. I just don't think we're necessarily where we need to be. Now, we could be a Yorion deck, which means that we're less likely to have the pitch cast spells we want. But Endurance and Force of Will kind of do the same thing against some matchups, like Ouphe Spells and Reanimator. So if we were to run a Yorion deck, we effectively have 8 of these. We can bring in a few Force of Negation, and then that gives us the space in the deck to run some Life from the Loams and some Ponders. Now, how reliably are we going to be able to hit the Endurance? Because we're going to be diluting our deck with extra cards as well. So we actually need more green cards, and then we end up in the same problem we were in this time. So maybe it's just a case that there isn't enough stuff that can support having the green and the blue as pitch castable on turn 1, and we just kind of have to suck it up. But you never know, they're always printing cards. In fact, they're printing cards way quicker than I can keep up with. I just looked today, and I'm recording this before the pre-release of Edge of Eternities, and I've just seen that there's been 83 cards are now spoiled from the Spider-Man set. So, you know, maybe we'll find some green-blue cards at some point that help a deck that looks like this one out. But it's a wild rate of printing cards, isn't it? Anyway, slight aside done with. I think it was an interesting experiment. I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be great, and it ended up not being so great. Another thing we could do to help with the 3-drops is have some like Noble Hierarchs. Noble Hierarch does not enjoy the world of Orcish Bowmasters, but it does help us get up the curve, and if our opponent's interacting just with Orcish Bowmasters, we can probably then go over the top of that anyway with various bits and pieces, so maybe it's not the end of the world. So we could try a build like that at some point. I've got an idea of something I want to play that's a little bit spicy, of course, and we'll try that on the channel later on. But I hope you enjoyed us experimenting with something different. I like to do experiments so you don't have to waste your play points doing so. And it's nice to play something unusual and different, see if it can slot together nicely. And it didn't quite work today, but I think playing it through and learning why it doesn't work is really important. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this one. Please let me know what you thought, and like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.